two hands on his back, pushing him. There's one section where it looks like Gabriel's, that Joe Linton's catching a wine from Gabriel because he's literally
Mate, he's riding him
forcing
like
his head down.
Jet ski.
Yeah,
he's riding him like a fucking jet ski.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Social Media Derby. How you doing, Jonty? You good, man?
Yeah, not too bad. Feeling a little bit under the weather, but should be able to get through this and the chat about the Newcastle goal and all that. So
yeah, you've got
that'll get me up. Don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Pause. But yeah.
Pause. Yeah.
But no, there's a why for that. But yeah, it's been a crazy weekend of football, to be honest. You may have caught your cold or whatever with what we did on the weekend. So we were very kindly invited by the Frank Sue Foundation, Alan Lau, who was on our very first podcast, to watch the Stoke City versus Cardiff City Championship fixture on Saturday and take part in some activities they had around Frank Sue's 90th anniversary of his debut for Stoke City. So they did a really nice event on the Friday where the councillor for Stoke came and attended, as well as a bunch of other fans and members of the charity. And then, they did a very nice presentation at the mural inside the stadium and pitch side, as well as during half-time as well. So it was a really good commemoration of a non-sung hero, and it was really nice for us to go and participate and see it firsthand. And yeah, Stoke's a very interesting place. We really enjoyed ourselves, didn't we, Johns? But yeah, that stadium is mad. It's like a cyclone of wind, cold, rain. It was a rough one, wasn't it?
It was, but yeah, the people of Stoke are lovely. The stadium just suddenly turns into like the North Pole as soon as the first whistle goes, because it was absolutely freezing.
Yeah, literally, we were outside the stadium, and it's kind of like a little bit outside the city, in kind of like an industrial type zone. There's a bunch of car dealerships and stuff around it. I want to call it the Britannia because that's the original name of it, but the Bet365. It's just like a vortex. You just transported to a very, very cold, rainy, windy, parallel universe as soon as you step into that stadium. So it was a terrible match, to be fair. 0-0, not many chances. The Cardiff fans were hilarious though, so big up all of those Cardiff fans. You were cracking us up. We were next to you guys, and it was funny to watch the banter back and forth. But yeah, big up the Frank Sue Foundation, and also Frank Sue was inducted into the Stoke on Trent Sporting Hall of Fame as well, which was a really nice touch by the city as well. So big up the city of Stoke. We'll definitely be back some other time, hopefully when you're back up in the Prem, and we can go for a nice away day when United and Arsenal go there. But yeah, big up Stoke. But let's get into it then. Let's get into the pod. First of all, big shout out everyone who's watching on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can, comment down below. We're probably going to have a lot of strong opinions in this episode, so line up the comments. We'll make sure to go back and forth with you. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can, or just any review if you're not rating it. Also give us the review. We'll look into it and try and take on the feedback to try and improve. But yeah, shout out everyone to please and make sure you do that. All right, John, so let's get into the Carabao Cup first, because that's the fixture that those are the round of fixtures that we missed during midweek. Both of us took L's. United at home to Newcastle, 3-0, and you away to West Ham. Let's start with the Arsenal result then. Bit of a surprise, although I think I called a West Ham win in last week's episode, and you were saying that, you should be able to beat them with a half full strength squad. 3-1 L. What did you make of the game?
It was terrible. I didn't like the lineup. I know that there were a couple of people in there that were obviously first team starters. You tried to say that like at least 6 or 5, 6 of those players were first team, like first 11 type players, which is absolute. there was a couple of good players in there. We had Gabriel obviously starting good, White starting, he's good. But I mean, outside of that, there were a lot of stinky players on that pitch that really it doesn't surprise me that West Ham beat us. To get beaten though 3-1, and I mean that's a flattering result because Odegaard had to come on at the last minute and slap a goal in. That was pretty much, he started and he finished. So it didn't really feel like a 3-1. It felt more like a 3-0 type of loss to West Ham. I've got to give props to West Ham though because they were really good, and they obviously put out pretty strong 11, and it showed. That Bowen was class. Again, Edson Alvarez was really good. They gelled really, really well where we didn't, and you could tell that back four hadn't spent a lot of time playing together in the last few, obviously few months. Ramsdale looked good at times, but shaky at other times. Zinchenko looks terrible defensively as usual. I don't like the starting midfield of Havertz, Vieira, and Jorginho. There's just nothing in that makes me happy. So it doesn't surprise me all that much that we lose because I think we're learning more and more, and it's part of kind of United's downfall this season has been about if you've got nothing of substance really in the midfield, you tend to get battered by some of these teams. So, all round terrible performance, all round. I don't know if Arteta's trying to do it on purpose now. Is he just like sacking off the Carabao Cup every year? Just like, you know what, we'll get out of a competition, minimise the number of games we play. If he is doing that, then fair enough. I'd rather he go out of this than he goes out of the Champions League or the FA Cup or something else. But just all round stinky performance from Arsenal, and West Ham deserved the place in the next round.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I mean, both the United, I think the Arsenal game was started half an hour earlier, didn't it? So I actually didn't know, and you were telling me about the goals going in while I was kind of watching the lead up to the United Newcastle game. But yeah, I was quite surprised actually how one-sided it was because you're right, the 3-1 scoreline makes it a little bit more respectable, but it was really last minute, literally last kick of the game, Odegaard goal. But West Ham dominated. But I mean, to be fair, you did put out a severely weakened team. West Ham played a very strong, if not the strongest team they could. I think someone who missed out on a shout out just now with what you said was Kudus was really good as well. Great finish. Turns Zinchenko in and out, which isn't that difficult, but he did it and battered the finishing. I will say I feel really bad for Ramsdale because I think he could have done better on the last two goals. Even with the first goal, I think he probably could do better with that as well.
I mean, there's shouts of a foul on that one as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think he was a bit hard done by it. It was more of Ben White's mistake, I think, that led to the foul and then goal, but no VAR, which you would hope would have intervened on that one if it was in, but there's no guarantee these days. But yeah, I think the shuffling around the goalies has screwed him over. He definitely looked decent at times, but he could do better on all the goals, to be honest. Foul or no foul. I think a confident Ramsdale would have kept out the other. At least the third goal definitely would have gone in. Maybe the second goal, he was a bit blindsided, but I still reckon a top form Ramsdale could have potentially saved it or, pushed it onto the post or get it, away from the goal. But yeah, all in all, I think you deserve to go out. West Ham definitely wanted it more. And yeah, maybe it is a bigger fish to fry situation with Arteta and, the Haribo Cup is the lowest of all the cups available, so it's not the worst situation to get knocked out. Let's go on to United. 3-0 defeat at home to Newcastle. We were absolutely stinky, abysmal. Like we lost to a team that had about 7 fullbacks, no strikers. A guy had come back from about 18 months off with a severe knee injury or whatever, slotted into their back line as centre back and played amazing. So, that tells you how toothless we were. Honestly, that game was a complete nothing game. Newcastle's rotation players wanted it more than us. And it felt like they owed us one, which is mad because they already battered us at St. James's Park after the cup final last season. So, it was even as far as I'm aware, but still they wanted to stick it on us. And they did, man. The Newcastle fans were bantering us, just like the City fans had bantered us on the weekend. You could hear it on the telly. all the chants. That one hurt me and me and Johns. We were joking about it in Stoke, and it almost feels like the Newcastle one hurt more because of how much I personally hate them. But yeah, poor result. Home form well and truly out of the window. No one can even look to try and compare our home form from this year to last year. We just look really, really, really vulnerable at home. Picked up more injuries. Now it's been revealed that Casemiro's out for 3 or 4 weeks with a hamstring injury, and he was taken off at half time. I didn't think he was that bad in the game, but he looked a bit rusty, and now he's injured, so that's fantastic. And yeah, just all in all, completely miserable game. And the only benefit I can see from it is the similar to what you just said, Johns. Get us out this cup. Let us concentrate on the league. Let us concentrate on the Champions League and try and salvage something from it, and try and reduce the number of games that these guys have to play. Because I honestly believe there's a million things going wrong for us, but one of them is the players are just overplayed. We had too many games last season, picking up too many injuries. Let's just get out of the cups that are not big priorities. We won it last year. Don't really care about the Carabao Cup this year. Let's move on to bigger games. And yeah, we well and truly deserve to get knocked out. But Johns, I'm guessing this is not a controversial one. Surely you agree, right? We were stinky.
Oh yeah, no, you stank. But I think you kind of made a good point. It all comes down to who wants it more. And right now, there wasn't a whole ton of desire coming from that team. I think that the performance against Fulham was a little different, but against Newcastle, it still felt like you guys weren't really turning up for the manager. They weren't really turning up for the fans. And while they played 25 fullbacks in their squad or whatever, but they all seem like they're like born and bred kind of to be Newcastle players and Newcastle fans. So there's like a lot of desire in that team. And I think against us on the weekend as well, it showed there's a lot of desire. Everyone's given absolutely 110% for that team. They come off the pitch at the end absolutely knackered in comparison to some other teams and some other players that aren't really doing that for you. And so even if your talent level is lower, if you're giving 100% of your talent, whereas everyone else is giving like 60, 70% of theirs, you're probably going to lose. So I think, they just wanted it more. And you guys you just seemed off it again.
Yeah, completely poor. And I mean, Newcastle, bloody hell. If they win this Carabao Cup, they will have had one of the hardest runs ever. The complete opposite to us last season. They faced City at St James's, beaten them, placed us at Old Trafford, which the aura around that is like a hard game, even if we're playing absolutely pants. And now they've got Chelsea away, which again looks on paper hard, but Chelsea are absolutely smelly and are about to get pumped by Tottenham in about an hour's time. So, might end up being an easy one for them. But certainly, if you look at it on paper, you go, wow.
Well, if you look at it in 10 years, everyone's going to be like, wow, that was a great run. Little do they know that 2 of those teams were absolutely stinky.
Exactly. It's going to look fantastic. Imagine they play at Liverpool in the final and they win. It'll be like, my God, they literally battered all the best teams in the league or like the historic teams in the last 20, 30, 40 years to win that title. So, and I do agree. I think Gary Neville said it on comms. For once, I actually agreed with him. And he said the thing missing for Newcastle now is the piece of silverware. I think that will really accelerate now their progression into being one of the top teams, because I think they're proving they've got it. They've got something about them. Even if I don't enjoy their football, and every time I see Newcastle's on telly, I'm like, oh my God, is there another match to watch instead? Because it's boring. But they're obviously headed towards bigger things, aren't they? We know they're going to keep improving, and the trophy might be the one thing they need to really be the launch pad. So yeah, let's hope they don't get it. Let's move on to the league. So Johns, talking of Newcastle, Arsenal lose 1-0 at St James's Park on Sunday. Oh, was it Saturday actually, afternoon or evening? We were driving back from Stoke watching it in a service station. Crazy game. So many contentious decisions. But what did you make of it, first of all?
It wasn't a great game. I mean, there was a bit of argy-bargy. I like that. I like to see that in today's
Newcastle
game, right? Typical Newcastle, but also apparently typical Kai Havertz against Newcastle. So that's always enjoyable to watch. But again, they just brought so much energy to it. Like they all seemed like they were giving 110%, and it seemed like for our style, it never really looks like we are giving 110%. If that makes sense, we're trying to be quite calm and composed, but they kind of just were overrunning us in parts of the pitch where they were winning the ball up high when they needed to, and they were getting stuck into challenges. It was getting kind of PC here and there, and getting a bit tasty. But I don't think it was a great game. There was obviously some contentious things that happened. Like, I don't want to hear it from Newcastle fans on the Kai Havertz challenge. That wasn't a red card. And it ended up being really smart because he got 3 of your lot, got them a yellow card. So have that, lads. But at the same time, then you have Bruno Guimaraes bloody people's elbow in Jorginho as he runs past. Somehow not a red card, even though, to me, the ball was miles away and he's using his elbow. It's not like he's pushing him like with a palm or anything else like that. Yeah. So another contentious decision for VAR to have to come out to explain, but I don't think they did, and I don't think they will, because, again, it's just mistakes upon mistakes for them. And then the goal. Here's the thing, right? So I'm gonna be reasonable. I don't think it was out, because I know that from those angles it can look like it's in. It can look like it's out, but it's actually in, because obviously the new rule that they're talking about, where if you look straight on top of it, the curvature of the ball. So from that point of view, I think if you draw actually lines from the corner of the ball to the bottom of the ball, and you kind of find where it would be, I think it's on the line. It could be in. So I'm not going to complain too much about that one, because I've seen a lot of people complaining like, oh, there's clear distance between the ball and the line. But that's the wrong angle. Like, of course it looks like that. So I'll give Newcastle fans that. I'm not going to be crazy about that one. But like the push in the back, to me, that's a foul. There's some stuff about the offside part as well, because of the fact that I think Raya was ahead of the last man for us. So I think if we're really using the rules, I think he is technically offside as well. So the two of those things combined, I feel like you take 5 minutes to make a decision. Surely those are the things you're thinking of, are they not? Like, is that a foul, yes or no? Is that offside, yes or no? I get that the ball not being out, they can't use goal line technology on a corner, I'm assuming, or whatever that would have been. So they just leave that one alone. I get that. That's fine. But those two other things of the offside and the foul, like, surely there needs to be more of an investigation into those two things, because to me, for the way that I'm looking at it right now, it was a foul, right? He's completely dashed him onto the ground, and then I think it is an offside technically by the rules of today. So from that, it stinks, and I kind of get Arteta's comments coming out and just ripping into them. And I've seen a lot of people clip up like some parts where he was talking about, earlier in the season, you have to give VAR the opportunity to make mistakes. And they completely clipping out the part where he says, at the same time, managers and teams are allowed to question PGML, MOL, and get them to, answer to their mistakes. So I love the way that people are like, oh, Arteta's going back on him, his word and all of this other malarkey. But at the same time, they're just like conveniently finding clips of where he says one thing just to support their agenda, right? Because it's Arsenal now. And I think when you see people like Goldbridge coming out, who, he doesn't give a crap about Arsenal, and he's coming out and saying, actually, you know what, this is for the better of football, that shouldn't have been allowed. Then, I mean, as much as you hate Arsenal and as much as everybody else is benefiting from this, whether it's Tottenham fans, Man City fans, Liverpool fans, whoever else it is that want to go ahead of us, at the same time, they were crying about getting a replay a couple of weeks ago, right? And I wasn't saying, oh, no, that there's no way that can happen. Oh, you're just crying again. I wasn't saying any of that. So I think it's just another stinky decision. It seems like every big team is going to get one, at least this season. There's going to be 1 point of outrage for all of us through the season. So it stinks. I don't want to hear it from, like you said, man, PGMOL. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm at the Gary O'Neill phase where it's just like, every game is a crapshoot. Just roll the dice. If you get a decision, you get one. If you don't, you don't. And that sounds horrible to say, because I feel like we're just like leaving the game up to just like complete chance now. It's got nothing to do with the rules. It's got nothing to do with who deserves it more. It's got nothing. It's just all roll the dice. And if we come out with a win, then we won. And
Yeah, like that's like that old dice game we used to play as children. Remember for football, we
exactly.
roll a dice and just like work out whoever wins based on some ridiculous set of rules that we've created to play the game. But let me just quickly jump in and ask you a couple of questions then, because yeah, I mean, like we literally have to create a ref watch segment on this pod because we just every week we're gonna have something like, um, and we don't even cover all the teams. We just cover our two teams, and like, but still, every week we seem to be having a couple of issues that we need to talk about. And the issues I want to bring up around this, I agree with you on the Willock ball out of play scenario and that first check, because the angles that Arsenal fans are losing their mind about, it's not the angle that you need to use to actually lose your mind. Like it's completely the wrong side of the ball. Like you can see from corners and stuff where people it looks like it's out, but because they've placed it slightly out of the box, but the curvature of the ball crosses over into the line, which keeps it in. Like we just need to go back to World Cup last year or what the early part of this year, um, with a Japan goal, and just look back to that and just go, look, this is the rule. This image is inconclusive, so let's not lose our mind on that one. Right, that's not the right one to lose your mind on. Although the consistency of the PGMOL stinks, because if you remember against who was it? I think it was Brighton or something. Rashford had one where it looks similar, if not actually, it looks closer to being in than the Willock one, and it was called out, and they don't have the technology, like you said, to be able to determine that. So they just rolled the dice and decided on that day they're going to call it that the ball was out, which stinks. So I'm not crying it like the treatment's different for us, but like where's the consistency? It's absolutely ludicrous. That was only like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Like come on, man. Like let's at least concentrate on making decisions consistently, and apologize for the ones that you make mistakes on, because they didn't apologize to us about that one. And I doubt they'll apologise to you for any of the other decisions that you've got wrongly given out to you. And but what I will say is that the contentious decision for me, the offside one, that rule is a minor. So like. We could be wrong on that, right? Like, as far as I understand, the rule is if the goalie's ahead of the ball, then you need at least two defenders behind, because there has to be one player essentially as the goalie who doesn't play someone on side. So you need another one to play them on side. And from what it looks like Raya is ahead of what's his face, um, Anthony Gordon. So probably should be offside, but I don't know the rules well enough to hammer them about that one. But the Gabriel push is the clearest foul I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know what Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher and those guys are smoking, because they're smoking the finest star dog Buju Banton out here, because that's a foul. He's got two hands on his back, pushing him. There's one section where it looks like Gabriel's, that Joe Linton's catching a wine from Gabriel, because he's literally
Mate, he's riding him like a
forcing his
fucking
head
jet
down.
ski.
Yeah,
He's riding him
exactly.
like a fucking jet ski.
So how is that not a foul? And I have to say, Arsenal fans who brought up the Hoyland on Rodri penalty award in the Manc Derby are right to look at that. That's less contact, the same kind of jeopardy, and suddenly now that's not a foul. So again, we go back to consistency and just say, what is going on here? And then on top of that, you take 4 or 5 minutes to make that decision. You can't get it wrong when you take that long. I'm sorry. You have to get it right when you take that long. You've already, caused detriment to the game by longing it out for 4 or 5 minutes or whatever it was. You absolutely have to get that decision right. So I really don't know what Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher are talking about when they're waffling about that's not a foul. Oh, it's happened to me, so trust me, it's not a foul. That's a 50-50. But no, I'm sorry. Nearly every single challenge Joe Linton makes is a foul, because he's an absolute fucking thug, to be honest. And all he does is just like chop people. Now, don't get me wrong. He's like got a set of lungs on him, and he moves around the pitch really, really well. And the fact that he's like managed to salvage a good career at Newcastle after his start, you give him massive props. But he's not a player with finesse, right? You'll agree with me on that. He's pretty rough around the edges. And it's clear that he's just completely shoved Gabriel and forced him basically away from the ball and, make that mistake. So that's a clear and obvious mistake. And to me, that goal should not have stood. So, I'm not an Arsenal fan, and I'm just as pissed as any fan watching that, because the referees are just ruining it now. Like, it's just, they've ruined it already, as Gary O'Neill said, and we talked about last week. So, yeah, let's get on to another question I want to ask you around the Arteta outburst, because what did he call it? The buzzword? It's a disgrace. He kept saying over and over again. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing.
Yeah,
it's a disgrace.
It's a disgrace.
That's also split people's opinions. So you've seen some people back him, which, to be honest, I back him. I'd be livid if that happened to me. But certain other people in the football media space have said that his behaviour was embarrassing. I think Ben Foster said something along those lines. Michael Owen definitely did. I think he tweeted about it. I don't know why he's getting involved, but he said that as well. What's your take on it? Do you think Arteta was justified in losing his mind after the match, or do you think he was not behaving his best?
Well, did he smash plates on the ground and go nuts? Like, what about coming out and being angry about a bad decision is embarrassing? If Pep came out and did it, oh, he's a genius, he's well within his rights to do so, blah, 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 and all you lot are going to suck his cock again, right? If Klopp comes out and does it, people are like, oh, the idea of a replay is a bit ridiculous. But it's Klopp, we're not going to, attack his character. But when it's Arteta, or Ten Hag for that matter, oh, it's embarrassing, he's making a mockery, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's just the same old that comes out of a lot of media people's mouths, right? Because they don't necessarily fully agree that it was that egregious of a decision, they're saying that it's an embarrassment that he comes out and says that the refereeing standard is crap. And what is incorrect about his statement? Right? Like, it is a disgrace. We've said it multiple times on this podcast, not including that game, that the PGMOL and the way that they've been dealing with decisions and the amount of mistakes they've been making have been a disgrace. Right? We've said this is the best league in the world, right? According to a lot of people. And the standard of refereeing is poor. The standard of refereeing, you literally could go down your local Sunday league team and probably find a better referee than you've got right now in the Premier League. So what about calling them lot a disgrace is embarrassing? Gary O'Neill says, oh, I don't want to talk to them lot anymore. Is that embarrassing? No, because he shows some passion and some fury in, his speech when he's talking about them. That's now embarrassing. I don't get where people have tried to just create this narrative and then jump on it, and what they're using to differentiate this from so many other manager outbursts that have happened in the past. It just, to me, it screams of an agenda. I don't know what the agenda is. I don't know where it comes from or what, because I don't remember Arteta really getting on the media previously. I don't remember him being hated by everybody. I thought a lot of people were, had a relatively decent opinion of him, or they were kind of neutral. But to me, this feels like it was bloody Joey Barton that's come out and said something. Everyone bloody is jumping on him so quickly. I'm like, what is the agenda here, and when did everybody get to hate Arteta this much? So I'm a bit confused by where all of that has come out. But in my mind, it's not a disgrace. His outburst is not embarrassing. He's coming out and defending his players. He's doing it again in a match where we've had multiple decisions that were a bit stinky, right? Like the Bruno one not being a red card. Again, that's another stinky decision, right? You've got a lot of problems in this match. And I think he's well within his rights to come out after the game where we've now lost to somebody that we were going to be in and around or in and amongst at the kind of top part of the table in a pretty crucial game that we needed to win to keep up with Tottenham and with Man City and with Liverpool, who seem to be on really good runs, right? So I don't get where the embarrassing part of it is. Maybe you've got a different viewpoint here, but the last thing I'll say on that is, Michael Owen, you can't call anyone embarrassing. Your punditry is embarrassing. All you do, you're basically just closed captions, aren't you? You just say what is happening on the screen without interjecting any opinion. So you're an embarrassment. Jog on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I think the Arteta agenda's been running for a while. because remember all the stuff about the rules about how managers and coaches can behave on the touchline. A lot of people attributed to those decisions to the way Arteta was behaving, and he was overzealous and over theatrical with his reactions to in-game decisions and scenarios, etc. And I thought that was a bit harsh, to be honest, because you can't tell me Pep's not doing that, Klopp's not doing that, a bunch of other managers are not doing that on the sidelines. I mean, Eddie Howe and his stupid little fake tanned minion, they do that better than anyone else. So, yeah, to be honest, it sounds like I'm sticking another knife in Newcastle, and yes, I am, because I hate them. But it's completely unfair that you could say Arteta was the reason behind it. So I think there is something running there. I agree with you. There's something with Ten Hag as well. That doesn't mean they don't make mistakes, by the way. Arteta has made mistakes. Ten Hag has definitely made mistakes. I can attest to that. But there's definitely something going on where they do something, the mainstream media disagrees with them, and they go in big, and they really, really try and make it a much bigger scenario than it is. And I don't know if it's
I think it's
because
this Ramsdale thing too.
maybe.
All of the English pundits are coming out like, "Oh, you did our boy Ramsdale wrong, so now we're going to come out at you." I feel like that's probably got a part to play in it too.
Yeah, no, and that's got a correlation with Ten Hag too. Look at what Ten Hag's done to Harry Maguire, our beloved Harry Maguire, boy from Sheffield, one of us. I had to get a Maguire rant in there somewhere. That's also another weekly segment. So, yeah, maybe that's something to do with it. They don't take kindly to how Arteta and Ten Hag have treated some of the England regulars because they want the national team to win. And I get it. I get how you could be sensitive about that, but at least try and cover it a bit. Like Mikel Owen, shut up, mate. You stink. I never want to see you on my screen again. Like, I don't want to see your daughter in Love Island. I don't want to see you. Just get out of the limelight. You've had your 15 minutes of fame. You were a good player when you were in your career, but you're a terrible pundit. You're a terrible host on that referee segment that you do with Howard Webb. All in all, just get off the TV, mate. Enjoy your retirement. Go and gamble on horses. And yeah, I don't want to see you ever again. Or hear you, even worse. That's even worse than seeing you. So yeah, he's not the one to come out and start hammering Arteta on being embarrassing, because yeah, his punditry is embarrassing, as you said. So I think it's absolutely rubbish, and it's just a way to hammer him. And also, don't forget, he was up against Eddie Howe, who's another English media darling. They want the English managers to do well, and all this, all of this is all. It's all
there's all correlation there. There's
yeah.
Newcastle are a very English team still in a lot of their kind of core. It still stinks to me, and I definitely think there's something else going on. I think the broadcasters must have a group chat where they're all just like, yeah, we're going to get on Arteta, because I've seen even YouTube channels that are affiliated with either Sky Sports or a different broadcaster jumping on the back of it too, trying to act like they're all kind of unbiased and we're just a fan channel kind of discussing what happens in football. But it's this, you just see the same. It's like someone has gone on Chat GPT and said, give me 100 titles of videos about Arteta being wrong, and then they just spat all of them out, and every single one of them is just there. There's something very kind of like industrial about the way that they've gone about it, and it just seems too coordinated for everyone to have the same opinion. And maybe people are going to come out and say, oh, maybe you're the idiot. Maybe if everyone agrees on this, maybe you're just a biased Arsenal fan. But
no,
I don't remember this happening for any of those other kind of major managers that are in the, I guess, the good books of some of these broadcasters and so on. So
no.
I think it stinks. And
it's not an Arsenal
to me,
bias.
exactly. And to be honest, the worst thing about it is the decisions in the game. They were bad, but they're not the worst I've seen this season. Right, I've seen worse. That I think that's pretty clear. Arteta coming out and saying some of this stuff, as he probably is well within his rights to do, seems to be now the major talking point of the whole game. And I know that in 6 months' time, people are going to be like, oh, remember that time that Arteta had an outburst over nothing? And they're going to forget what happened in the game because it wasn't like Brentford not drawing lines and whatever else. And it's going to be part of this, building up of the media hatred towards Arteta that will probably end up in some sort of pressure on his job if he doesn't deliver this season. And I can just see it coming. And this is where I said to you in the car on the way to Stoke the other day, the media has such a large part to play in what all of us think. And as much as we want to say, oh no, we're independent thinkers, people like Sky Sports, people like, TNT, all of these other pundits, TalkSport, whoever else it is, it does really feel like they've got a lot in their hands, and it seems when they're being like this, where it seems like they're actually kind of sticking together to go at someone. To me, it feels like, yeah, you guys have been instrumental in getting this guy out of his job. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that Arteta will lose his job. I'm not saying that. That's obviously all a bit of a reach. But there's something really sinister about what is happening in the media, particularly in regards to this kind of this Arteta stuff.
No, yeah, I hear you, and
Just stinks, man.
It infiltrates you as much as you can be anti-media or like try and fight against it. At some point, you're going to agree with them, and that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And then your perception of them starts to change, and then you become more susceptible to taking on some of their other thoughts and agendas, which is the danger of it. And yeah, I hear you. There's definitely something going on, and it's basically, as we've said, it's absolutely so. Now, I want to get into the other question, which probably is a bit of a I've probably gone a bit early on it, but with the 2 defeats in a week now, and I know you and a bunch of other Arsenal mate fans have basically not been inspired by the performances so far this season, really. Do you think there's something wrong? And how do you think Arteta can get you playing somewhat similarly to last year? And is that even possible? Like, now that you've kind of tweaked the playing staff and the formation and stuff?
I mean, there is something wrong because we're not performing as well as we could be, right? And I think that's what's most disappointing to Arsenal fans, is that our performances have not. It's not that they haven't been good; they just haven't been to the standard that we expect. And I would say that the thing that maybe is wrong, and I've kind of called this out on pods earlier, is our failure to adapt quickly enough to differing circumstances. And last year, obviously, we caught everyone off guard. The way that we played, everything started clicking at the same time, and we just started like battering teams. And this season, people have kind of figured us out a little bit better, right? They understand us a bit more. It's just like Gary O'Neill said, coming out on the telly and saying all these things about tactics shouldn't be a shock to any Premier League teams. They've all been doing hours and hours of kind of study of the teams that they come up against. They're likely to already know a lot of these things. And I think with Arsenal, a lot of people have been watching us clearly from last season and thinking, here's how we're going to try and shut that down. And I don't think Arteta has adapted our style of play enough, or given us, put enough in our bag to be able to come up against teams and have to play a little bit differently and still win. So that's where maybe I think there's a failure on Arteta's part to have not built up enough of a versatility in the way that we play to be able to beat teams when they're like really trying to stifle our preferred way of playing. And I think when you combine that with some iffy signings, things aren't clicking anymore, right? Like they're just clearly not, to me, they're not clicking. We had Xhaka playing at the best football of his bloody life, which obviously no one expected and caught everyone off guard because he was not great before that. Now we've got Havertz in that role. We had Partey playing, again, some of the best football of his life. Now we've got Rice, which has actually been better. We've improved a little bit in that area. But like outside of that, I don't see where we've like massively improved the team. Like the Raya situation, we haven't seen a marked improvement in our goalkeeping performances. We haven't seen a marked improvement from whatever Jorginho is supposed to be doing. We haven't seen a marked improvement from a lot of the areas of the team where we were expecting to improve. So you combine that with a lack of adaptability, and we're coming up against teams who've kind of got our number, and they're just like, I know how you're going to play. I know what you can't do. I know who to test in your team, and they're getting something from us. They're stifling the way that we play. We don't have enough in our bag to change, and we're getting caught on the wrong end of some results here. And so that's what's wrong.
How do you fix it then? What are you going to do to fix it? Because I only ask that because your approach and the way you've looked at this is interesting, and it has matched quite closely with what I'm seeing when I watch Arsenal play. A lot of other Arsenal fans, though, are saying that the team's simply not playing the way it used to last season, and that there seems to be some sort of tactical change that Arteta's implemented, which hasn't allowed you to play as fluidly.
That's where the signing part comes in, though. because he took our team from last season, who were able to do essentially all the jobs that he needed them to do in that style, and he took some of the parts out of it and said, okay, there's a new part. He's not exactly the same. Like Havertz is a major one here, right? He's not the same as Xhaka. He's not going to play as deep as him. He's not going to be quite as energetic in the style of football. He's not going to, run around and do what he needs to do. So he's taken what I would say a subpar player for that specific type of position and slotted him in. So we're not going to be able to play the way that we want to play because he hasn't bought the right people. And maybe he's done that because he wants to adapt the way that we play to something different. I get that. But I'm not seeing that either.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like we're starting off kind of trying to play the same way. We're still getting Zinchenko to try and thread the needle and do all of this stuff. We're just not able to do that because some of the players that we've got in these positions ahead of him aren't really the kind of player that we had last season. They aren't capable of doing that. So
I think that's a fair assessment, to be honest. I honestly believe the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. So your new signings obviously don't allow you to play exactly the same way, at least not at the beginning, because they haven't adapted to the style yet, and they're definitely not round pegs in round holes. So if they were, maybe, for example, the way Rice has adapted to Partey's position has been pretty seamless. You could have had similar kind of adaptations if those players were like for likes. But like you said, Xhaka is not the same as Havertz. I would argue that Raya is not the same as Ramsdale. I would argue that when Vieira has to come in for Odegaard, he's not the same as Odegaard. So as soon as you start moving pieces around, things change. So therefore, you have to look at playing a different style. And of course,
we're playing Nketiah more up front as well, who's definitely not the same player as Jesus.
No,
right?
Definitely not. You can see that. But I also think some of your players have dropped their levels. We have to admit this at this point. I think your wingers weren't great against Newcastle. I do think part of that's because of the way that they were defended, but also just there is some element of accountability that they need to take. I don't think, and I love Martinelli and Saka as much as a United fan can. I like the way they play, and I can acknowledge they were very, very good last season. And I think they're top talents, and they aren't quite kicking into gear yet. And they may be a victim of this style change or the slight, their kind of domino effect of missing one or two players in the system have forced them to start falling down too. Or it might just be they're struggling to keep up their levels. Or it might again be that you have to take into account how the opposition play you as well. So you can play amazing, but if your opposition plays amazing, just as amazing or better, or tactically they outwit you, you have to give them credit for it. You can't just say your players were rubbish, right?
Exactly.
It's a mixture of all these things. So there's some element of it that's in Arteta's hands and in the players' hands, coming up with new and innovative ways to play.
Let me ask you one more question.
But there's also, you can't do anything
how
about
many
how
styles and squads have we started with in these first 10 games?
Yeah, you've moved things around quite a lot.
We started out with Partey at right back for the first few weeks, right? We started out with Ramsdale. We started out with Havertz in this position. We started out with we've changed the squad and changed the starting 11 so many times already in 10 games. I feel like another thing to add to that is settling.
Yeah.
Last season, you had a very settled squad. They were doing well together and, they were using momentum. Here, we don't have that opportunity because he's changing it so much because his first choice, his first attempt was balls. His first attempt wasn't good enough. Right. Yeah, and obviously, 100%. Drury and Timber getting injured really early as well has probably put him in a back foot type position. But we've seen far too many variations of the squad already.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Man, you are in a similar position, right? Like it's something that I can see. Like if you have a few signings come in and you've earmarked them to enter your starting 11, the number one thing you need is continuity and the time to give them some, the chance to settle and create their style of play that they're going to start playing together as a team. And if you don't, if they're injured, suspended, whatever, it's just going to make that process and that, that time that you need to get to where you want to get to longer and more drawn out. And I think that's what's happening. And it's actually, really good that you guys have been managed to pick up as many points as you have, despite some of the performances, despite some of these troubles that you've been facing. Because obviously United, I compared our situation to Arsenal in some ways when it comes to the injuries and swapping all the players. But we've lost a lot of games, so that's how it could have gone, and you guys have avoided that. So I guess you've got to look at it in some sort of positive and just hope things start clicking. Arteta starts making some big calls and they go right, and you face some opponents who don't get a game plan 100% on point. Because I do think there is an element of that with Newcastle. We can't go too big on Arsenal's performance because Newcastle, as much as I cuss them all the time, they're a good team. So and St James is hard. So I know that. So anything can happen really. But let's get on to the United game then. Fulham 0, United 1. It was a crazy game, to be honest. Not quite as crazy as your game. But it was kind of a weird one because there was a lot of action in the first 15, 20 minutes, a lot of action in the last 10, 15 minutes, and the middle was kind of a bit there. Like Onana made some decent saves, but none of them were, You know what I've realised? I'm gonna call this out, yeah? Onana is 100% a camera highlight goalie. Because none of the saves he actually makes are that hard. The majority of them are right at him. But he does something to push them out high or push them wide, or he does some sort of he does some sort of star
He's got
jump
apparently
save.
a different technique to a lot of other goalies in how he dives. Apparently, his lead leg closest collapses in, so he kind of just goes from his standing leg down straight to the ground. Apparently, it allows him to get down to the ground quicker than other goalies, because other goalies might take a step with their lead leg first and then try and jump at it, but he just dives straight at it. So you know what I mean? He's goes
so unorthodox
from standing position to
honestly.
just he just tips over.
Honestly, he's one of the most unorthodox goalies I've ever seen in my life. And he's just so bloody all over the shop. I mean, I'm happy and thankful for the form he's found in the last few games, because he has, despite all of that, what I've just said, he's looked a lot more stable than he had in the first 7-8 games that we saw of him in the season. But still, he's one of those goalies that's just going to make you laugh and smile every time you see him. If he's, on one hand, he's dropping clangers and the rivals will love it. On the other hand, he's making all of these saves, which are completely routine, look like, he's just done, the bloody Valderrama save or something like that, and he hasn't. So, yeah, it was interesting. He made some saves in that middle boring period of the game. And then the last 10, 15 minutes, things started to happen, and we managed to get the Bruno goal in injury time. I was standing with you, Johnson, a bunch of other guests in the Stoke City, the Bet365 Stadium concourse, giving it a get in and celebrating in front of the Stoke fans, because I literally didn't give a shit. We needed to win that game. And I feel like we got screwed at that beginning part. And I know we've got different points of view on the McTominay goal and it being disallowed, but yeah, it always goes back to consistency. It always goes back to what the hell these refs are doing and how they come into the decisions more than the actual decisions themselves. So for that one, I kind of understand what they're saying when they say he's in that zone where the ball is dropping. So therefore, him just being there, some people believe he's interfering with play or he's part of the play. The fact that it doesn't go or he touches it or, the ball actually continues to move on a little bit further away from him, I believe means that he's not really done anything to that goal. I know you can make your argument and you've got a different point of view on it, but I think it was the wrong call, and I think that goal should have stood. All in all, I'm not going to go absolutely big on it because we still won. So, hold that, PGMOL. Take that, you bastards. We got the win anyway. But, yeah. And I saw some stat, and I'm not going to cry a river and say, the conspiracy theories things. But so far, based on VAR, we've had the most decisions go against us this season of all the Prem teams. And this one wasn't the worst. Like you mentioned in the Newcastle game, there's other ones that have been worse that you guys have suffered, and we've definitely suffered some worse ones, like the Rashford one against Brighton I told you about. The Garnacho Romero one still gives me nightmares, but this one wasn't the worst, but I still believe it wasn't the right call. But yeah, share with the pod and the listeners what you think of it, because I know you don't agree.
Well, I think your point that you made at the time was right. So my viewpoint is if you are interfering with play in the fact that you are drawing a defender to you instead of going to the person at the ball that the ball actually ends up at, then you are interfering with play. And so I'm of the belief that if you're running far ahead of like play and no one's chasing after you, then fine, it's not an offside. But if you're in contention for the ball, even if it's not necessarily coming to you, but if you're looking like you're going up for it and then defender says, oh crap, he's going to go up for it, so I'm going to go after him, then you're interfering with play. And I know the PGMOL haven't really implemented this rule, and I don't know what their stance is on it, but there was obviously times earlier with Man City where, you know, headers were getting fired at goal. The guy is quite clearly taking the goalkeeper's eye line away from the ball and away from where the ball's going to go, and last minute jumps out of the way, and apparently it's a goal, which I think stank at the time. And I was a pretty vocal person against that whole decision. And in this case, I'm the same. I think Maguire draws the back post defender. There's only one defender there. He draws the back post defender away from Garnacho towards him. He obviously misses the ball. The defender obviously misses the ball too, but it leaves Garnacho open to cross it across the face of the goal to McTominay. So I'm in two minds here because I'm thinking the rule should be, I think for fairness' sake, that should be offside, but so should the one for Man City and all the other ones that have happened so far this year and last year. But at the same time, I think if you haven't implemented it against City and against all these other teams, then you shouldn't really implement it here either, even though I think it's technically offside. So that's where I'm kind of stuck in two minds. And obviously it's United, so I like to see you guys unhappy. But I'm in this weird limbo position. And again, it's because of the PGMOL, because you guys stink so much. You're literally making it difficult for fans to even choose a side. Like, I'm stuck here between what's right and what you guys are doing. And like, you're putting everyone in such a difficult position of like what the rule should be, and then what the rule should be based off of your stupid bloody implementation of it over the last 18 months.
Yeah, no. And I get it. When we saw that goal in the pub before we went to the stadium to watch the Stoke game, and we saw that goal happen in real time, that was your argument, and I do kind of understand it. But I would even say that it's slightly different than the Rodri one, because that subjective offside call with the Rodri one at least has, I believe anyway, some clauses based on if you're in the eyesight of the goalie and obstructing their view, even if you aren't necessarily touching the ball, you're interfering with play, and that's an offside, right? Whereas we are just guessing that the reason why this has been called offside is because of what I just said. Like, the ball was dropped in that general area and Maguire was taking the defender away, and therefore he's interfering with the play. But I don't believe that's in the fucking rule book, man. I really don't believe that's in the rule book. And from what
didn't they come out and call it like subjective
offside.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. Like, the commentators called it out, and because they can obviously hear the convos happening in Stockley Park between VAR and the on-pitch officials. They were like, they've decided to call it offside based on a subjective offside. So what the fuck are we doing anymore? Because as far as I know, offside was supposed to be something that's clear cut. It's either on or offside. And the subjective offsides, where does that even come up? Why is that even a fucking phrase? Why can I just say that and roll off the tongue? That's not a fucking word, man. Like, and that's not something that we should be involving VAR in, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't want to hear subjective black and white in anything.
Nothing.
These are rules. I want everything to be black and white and objective. I don't want to hear subjective anything.
Exactly. Like, anything subjective in the name me off the rip. If it happens to me, I'm going to be livid, even if it's fair. Like, I don't want to hear subjective anywhere near it. So, yeah.
Especially if we're saying that clear and obvious is the reason why these decisions are made. Because clear and obvious sounds to me like it's pretty objective.
Yeah, those go against each other. So, the PGMOL, we need to do a PGMOL counter for how many times we cuss them on each pod, because we're reaching double digits on this one, because this particular episode that they've really stunk it up. But yeah, I'm glad that didn't end up affecting the result, and I'm really glad we managed to get the winner in the end. You could see how much relief and a release of energy was coming out of Bruno when he scored that winning goal. It wasn't the most beautiful goal ever you'd see, Although he did sell a couple of defenders with his little shimmy.
It was a nice
to move
turn,
it onto
yeah.
the right.
It was a nice little turn.
So probably Leno could do better, to be honest, because it's not right in the corner. He kind of pushes it into the side net, and so from an analytical standpoint, if Onana let that goal in, I'd be pretty upset with him. So you could look at Leno, I guess, but he's generally been pretty good for Fulham. But yeah, Bruno has faced a lot of criticism. People that we love, Roy Keane saying he should be stripped of the captaincy and all that kind of stuff after the City game. For him to get that goal, makes me happy, because as much as, he's been playing poorly and maybe he's not the perfect captain ever, he's still one of our better players. Like, we can't deny that. He's not perfect. He's not as good as some Man U fans maybe make out, but he's definitely not one of our worst players, and he's definitely one of our better players. And the fact that he is the captain, as lauded is, as lauded as one of our two best players, and that's a criticism. It's not his fault. We should have better players around him so that he's not being considered our lifesaver. But in this case, he was. So big him up for that. It really means a lot. We really needed that win. We needed it, and he came up big for us. So big up Bruno.
Well, I mean, on that point, that last-minute winner kind of feels like a turning point. And we've probably gone over this a bunch of times, and every time you guys win, I ask you the same question. But does that feel like a turning point? Like, for you guys to get that last-minute winner in a game where, maybe, again, you had a decision go against you. The fact that it's Bruno as well to come out and get that winner when everyone's been shouting about him being a crap captain, me included, by the way. Does it feel like there's anything has changed? Do you feel like momentum's on your side now, or do you still feel like the problems are the problems and we're going to have a hard time of it this season anyway?
I mean, this one feels a bit more like a turning point than, for example, the Sheffield United McSauce goals, because at least the way Bruno scored the goal, I mean, it was a little bit jammy. Like, the ball bounced around a few times and then it, reached him. But at least it was a decent bit of quality from him to score the goal. Whereas I believe the Scott McTominay ones were just like, hoof it in the bloody box and let's just pray that someone, hits off someone's ass and goes in the goal. So that's not really the way we want to play, right? Well, you hope that's not Ten Hag's style of play for going forward. So it feels a bit more of a turning point than that. But yeah, you're not going to reel me in. This is not a turning point for United. I'm not going to make any kind of claim about it at this point. We need to get a good 3 or 4 more wins with better performances on the trot before I even consider muttering those words out of my mouth. I still believe this season is going to be really hard for us. And like I said, I think if we finish 6th, 5th, 4th would probably be a miracle at this point. I wouldn't put any of those things past us, because somehow, in times gone by, we've managed to do those kind of those finishes even while playing uninspiring football. But this season, you look at that top 4, and I know Liverpool got a draw. I know you guys lost. City obviously spanked Bournemouth, but we'll see how Tottenham do against Chelsea. But generally, that current top 4 are doing really well. And I think there was some stats saying at this point in previous seasons, we've never seen a top 4 with this many points before. So that tells you how hard the task is to get in the top 4 for a team like United, who are so erratic. So I'd need to see a long run of wins, or at least draws, and kind of a bit of an unbeaten run before I even think the tide is turning at any point. So yeah, I'm not gonna jump early on that one, to be honest. I think it was a good win, one that we deserved, even if we weren't great. But yeah, I'm not gonna jump on the turning point part, to be honest. I think we've still got a lot of work to do, for sure. Definitely.
Well, I mean, as you said, right, like you are an erratic team, and I think this leads me to my next point, which is a funny little tweet that I saw on my timeline earlier today, or an X, I should call it, from the United stand, talking about Rashford's future being in doubt at United. And what do you know? Man like Marcus Rashford himself, feeding the children and all that, comes out and replies, "Stop spreading malicious rumours." That's that. He didn't even give him the finger, didn't give him any kind of F words, nothing. I like it. It was classy. What did you make of that whole debacle, and what do you think the media are going to come out and be saying tomorrow? I'm sure you're dreading all of the books that's going to come out off the back of this one, aren't you?
Yeah, you know what? It's a really interesting one, because I watched Goldbridge's response, well, whatever clip they posted on the United Stand response to Rashford's reply to their stream with the clickbaity image and title and everything. And I've never seen more waffle in my life. And we crack up to some things Mark Goldbridge does. He tends to be quite hilarious. Although, character-wise, there are a lot of different judgments out there in the sports media space. There tends when a lot of people are saying the same thing, you tend to look at that person and say, why are all these people saying you're a cunt? Probably some truth in there, right? So there's some claims around him. I'm not going to go big on the Forest fan stuff because I think that's rubbish, but the way he does business, the way he approaches things, I think there's a lot to be left to the imagination. And I think he has definitely made some errors in his ways. But this one is something that I have to admit is definitely starting to piss me off, and probably one of the reasons why I don't watch as much of their content anymore. And it's this turn to clickbait titles and clickbait images and going over the top on certain issues or certain things when there's no need to, and causing a massive stir and some instability in the fan base, which, to be honest, when we're playing this shit, we need to be united in calling it out. We don't need to be all fractured and talking shit to each other and fighting with our bloody star players on Twitter. Like, it's ridiculous. And the thing that he was saying about how I'm a big Rashford fan, but he needs to concentrate on playing on the field. He's been shit and blah, 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 and proceed to, cuss him out. What does that have to do with the point Rashford or whoever on Rashford's team was making by replying to his tweet? Rashford's point is 100% valid. Don't create unnecessary rumours, right? He's dealing with enough. We've talked about it offline. There's things going on in his personal life. He's broken up with his childhood sweetheart. He's obviously going through a bit of change in his life. His performances haven't been that good this season. He's made a few mistakes, like going out and celebrating his birthday after getting spanked in the Manchester derby. Probably not one of his finest decisions. He doesn't need you starting to chat shit about him on your big platform with almost 2 million fans and subscribers, where you're calling into doubt his future at the club. He's just signed like a 5-year deal. He's not going anywhere, mate. Ten Hag loves him. Even if he's playing shit, Ten Hag still plays him and says, I'm going to keep playing him until he starts playing well. He literally saved our asses last season. It was Rashford and Inshallah last season, right? So let's not go around acting like anything about his future's in doubt. Does he maybe deserve to be dropped? Probably. As his performance has been bad? Yeah. Hell yeah. I've definitely been going, fucking hell, Rashi, what you doing there, mate? But none of that has to do with what he's calling out in his response to your tweet, which is completely valid. Stop creating this bullshit rumours around something that's never going to happen just to get some fucking views, right? Like, we don't have hardly any views, hardly any subscribers. We still literally just say what we think and don't create clickbaity type titles. We've considered it. We've talked about it a lot of times because we say some egregious, outrageous stuff on this podcast from time to time, most of the time me, but we still don't do it. Like, so what the hell are you doing? It's irresponsible at this point, to be honest. And as much as there's some parts of this PR United that we've become that I really, really hate, this is one thing I'll fully back Rashford, despite his poor performances, because it has nothing to do with that. He's well in his rights to say, Goldbridge, fucking do one, you stupid twat. Don't spread lies about me. And I agree with him. He's completely right. And the way that Goldbridge responded is, it just proves like what people have said about this fan base and how some people, their heads are so big and up their own asses that they can't take critique or criticism. Stop making clickbait titles. Critique people's form, fair dues. But don't do that. And if people call you out, you can, as Tigo did on Filthy Fellas last week, eventually say my bad. You don't have to just be saving face, all about your ego. You shouldn't have an ego. You're just a fan, mate. You're nothing special.
Well, this is the problem I want to call out. He's not just a fan anymore. And he can't keep saying, we're just a fan, we represent the fans. Because actually, if you do represent the fans and you want what's best for the club and all of this other stuff that they usually spout before they say something egregious, you should be thinking of long-term consequences of the content that you make. And while I agree that there should be unbiased opportunities for people to voice their opinion on how the club is doing and what's going well and what's going not so well, they can't then be angry when a player or somebody that's affected by the content that they make comes out and says, stop talking at your ass. And I think that's where they straddle the line between trying to say like, oh, we're just fans giving our opinion. No, you're not anymore though. Like, you've got millions of subscribers, you've got millions of fans that listen to the stuff you say, you've got media outlets that take your content and, you know, repurpose it and take rumors out of it for other reasons, right? And other types of content that they want to make. At that point, you're not just a fan anymore. You know, you're not having conversations down the pub anymore. You're having conversations with a million, 2 million, 3 million people at a time. And you have to report responsibly. And this is where the whole like BBC, Sky Sports, all of these other things, they have a code that they have to stick to, like a journalistic code to say, this is what I agree I will and will not do. And as a content creator, as a content creating channel that has millions of subscribers, you kind of have to sign up to the same thing. You have as much influence in a specific part of the fan base as some of these other outlets do. So in my mind, go ahead and make the clickbaity content. That's well within your rights to do that. As a business, you want to make money. But at the same time, don't spout you're just for the fans. You care about the fans and use that as your MVP, like, or your USP, sorry, or like why you're someone that we should listen to. Because you're just completely shirking the responsibility that you have to the fan base. And if Rashford does come out and call you an absolute twat, just take it on the chin, because that's how you're putting, you know, food on the dinner table for your family. Just take it on the chin. Don't come out and say, oh, he needs to focus on his performances. No, that's not the point. As you said, it's not the point of what he's talking about. It's actually got nothing to do with the point that he's talking about, which is stop spreading bollocks rumors. And this is where maybe the title of this episode should be fans versus the media, because all of you lot with the Arteta agenda, you lot at the United stand with the Rashford agenda, stop doing these things where there's something in the background, another reason for why you're doing them, right?
Yeah.
Just come out and say what you're doing them for.
To be honest, I agree with you. Actually, you're right. I agree on that point. There a lot of these content creators and fan channels claim to be just fans, or not. They shy away from the influencer tag, and then they've suddenly got a huge ego because they understand the weight of their opinions and their influence on the general public. You can't have it both ways. So I actually agree with you on that, to be fair. But in terms of your stardom, your fandom, it's come from being a fan.
Yeah,
You're not a baller on the pitch. You're not capable, or you're not able to replicate anything that these guys do. So let's be respectful, right? You can be respectful while critiquing people's opinions, right? And sometimes we don't get it right and we use the wrong language. But we don't mean any harm, or we don't actually, hate any of these players or people. We're just passionate and get upset about certain performances and never about the people. Unless you play for Newcastle, then you're all kids. But all right, let's go on to the preview section. I'm just joking, Newcastle fans, right?
It's all right. When we become influencers and we've got more fans, we'll stop doing this.
Yeah, no, I was only joking. I've got to run with it. People are eventually going to watch these, hopefully at some point, and see my kind of anti-Newcastle genesis arc and see where it all started. But anyway, let's go on to the villain arc. Let's go on to the previews then for the games we've got coming up this week. We've got Champions League game week 4. We're both in action on Wednesday. We're away to Copenhagen in the reverse of that fixture we played a couple of weeks ago, and you're at home to Sevilla in the reverse of that really impressive 2-1 win that you got in Seville a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to start off with a prediction. Try and keep it short and sweet.
Go on, smoky settings. Come on.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to go barbecue smoky Texas settings this time. I'm going to go United to win 2-1, but it's going to be squeaky bomb settings is what I'm going for this week, and I think it's going to be really, really tight. But we have to win. So, and I believe actually weirdly we flipped things on its head, and we've been looking slightly more assured away from home. At least shipping in goals. We haven't been shipping in loads away from home against the teams that we've played. So except for Bayern, obviously, but You can see from what happened to Borussia Dortmund.
Everyone's shipping in goals against them. Yeah.
Harold Jebediah Kane is on fire at the moment. So let's hope we win 2-1. What's your take on that game? And also give me your Arsenal Sevilla prediction.
I think you can win that against Copenhagen. But I feel like you just jinxed it. You said it's going to be 2-1. Now it's going to be 5-0 to someone. I don't know who it will be 5-0 to, but someone's getting 5 goals through. So it might be you. It might be Copenhagen. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know these days.
For Arsenal Sevilla, it feels like we're on the opposite of the kind of come up that we were on when we discussed the last fixture. And again, I feel like maybe they'll shock us this time. Who knows? Maybe they flipped it round and we'll beat them at theirs and they'll beat us at ours. I'm going to go a 1-1 draw.
Oh,
and I think the reason I'm going to say that, I'm not bottling it. I'm being honest, right? I think we're going to play a weaker team again.
No chance.
And I think this time we're going to get punished for it.
No chance.
I'm sorry to say, man. Like
you've got qualification on the line, right? Like if you win this game, and I believe, is it PSV or Lens? One of the other games go the opposite way.
Yeah.
No. We've got 2 more fixtures, right? There's six rounds in the group.
But I mean, we only need one more win really to get through this group.
Yeah, but even what I'm trying to say is, if you win this, and I think it's PSV lose the other, then I think you and Lens are both qualified, or you have enough points to have qualified, and Sevilla and PSV will be stuck on 2 points each, and therefore you won't have solidified first. You'll still need to win one more game to get first, but you can qualify. So I believe that's enough jeopardy that Arteta's not going to shit the bed and put a weakened team in this game. And I think you guys will win, but it will be tight again. And I think it'll be probably closer and tighter than the away fixture was. But I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal as well. I'm 2-1 FC this week on the Champions League games. I think you'll win it and you'll get through the group, which will be good because you kind of made a bit of a meal of it, more than you needed to, considering you had basically a Europa League group and Champions League.
You're playing flipping Copenhagen. You're talking about
who's the other team?
They won't even get into Europa League. They'll be with West Ham in the whatever that bollocks is that they play.
Copenhagen are handy, man. Don't disrespect them. Well, we got Bayern, so let's be real.
Yeah, one good team, great. Okay, so I mean, I'm going 1-1. For you lot, I'm going 5-0 Copenhagen because suck on that, mate.
Scumbag.
I'm going to be wrong with both my predictions, clearly.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that stinks. But I think, I think the reason why I'm saying all of this is because I think we only need one win left. And I think we won't make it that easy for ourselves to say, oh, let's just get this win. And then next week we'll, or the next couple of game weeks, we'll just put out a crap team. I think that Arteta likes to do it like this, where he's going to be like, you know what? We've got a little bit of runway. We need a win in the Premier League. We've just come off the back of a couple of losses. Keep it easy in Sevilla, and then at Burnley we'll smash them.
Yeah, tricky. I believe it will go the other way around. So let's get into that then, because you've got. I think we're both playing on Saturday. Which, by the way, can I just say, what the f*** are the Premier League doing? If we're playing on Wednesday, why the f*** have they put us on Saturday? Put us on Sunday, man. Why? This is what gets my goat, man. I'm going to go on a last minute rant before we wrap this up. Other leagues try and help their teams in Europe. They move fixtures around to give them a bit more rest so that they can perform better in Europe, which obviously helps their league's coefficients and all of this stuff. It benefits the league, right? Why the hell does our league not give a shit about teams that play in Europe and just put fixtures on? I hate Liverpool, but didn't Liverpool get like a Thursday game and then they were on like midday on a Saturday or something like that? Like, come on, man. Why the f*** are we playing on Saturdays after playing Champions League on Wednesday? It just doesn't make sense. They need to sort that out, honestly.
They've got to sort the scheduler out so they can always have Newcastle on. They've clearly that's the way that they've done it.
That's what it's based on. Stupid bloody Premier League, mate. We've got Luton at home. Premier League game week 11.
They may as well just give up. They may as well just put the white flag up and just say, lads, you lot can have it.
We can't say that. We can't say that. They did a great job. They got a point against Liverpool yesterday. Yeah. And they were bloody close to getting 3 points. Big up the boy Tahith Chong, United legend. Big up the Chongy.
You can't do that every single time, mate. You can't just be like, anybody that does anything that doesn't play for United anymore is now a Man United legend.
Big up. He's gonna get a little thank you package from the United. I bet United are sending him a little something for getting that goal there. Big them up. But yeah, I hope we'll spank them because despite that result, Luton Town are absolutely abysmal. So
Exactly.
we should batter them. Our home form is very worrying, so I don't think it'll be as convincing as I would like it to be. But I think we'll win 3-1. And I believe this will be the game that Højlund breaks his Premier League drought and breaks his duck in the Premier League and finally gets a goal because he's what 0010 or whatever now. He needs to score a goal, mate. He's struggling in terms of in front of goal. We need to get some goals, so I think we'll win that 3-1. What about you? What do you think about our game and then also the Arsenal Burnley game?
3-0 Arsenal Burnley is what I'm going for. Man United Luton, I think you're right. They'll get a goal because it is United after all. But I agree. I think I'm going to go 3-1 as well. I think you'll beat Luton. It's easy to get goals past them unless your name's Liverpool. So yeah, I think you'll beat him 3-1 and we'll win 3-0. Have that Vincent company, mate.
Yeah, Burnley, man, they're kind of going under the radar low key because everyone loves Vinny Company and we do as well, despite the City links. And we want to see a black manager do well in the league as well because we need to see more of them. But they are stinking it up, man. They keep losing and they keep playing the same way. And I heard someone say that they've spoken to their chairman and the idea was that Burnley are going to somehow hit form in over the winter period and come strong in the second half of the season. They might be cut adrift by then. This is honestly one of the craziest tactics I've seen from a club to just keep playing like.
And what's the thinking behind it? Is it just like in winter everyone's going to be like cold and just let Burnley beat them? Like what's going to change away in the way that everyone else plays and in the way that Burnley plays to mean that is true? Because
I think it leans the other way.
It doesn't look like anyone. Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone's like afraid of Burnley. They're all just going there and absolutely trouncing them.
Yeah, I think it leans the other way, man. I think during those winter months, the people that just play the most economical, direct football tend to benefit the most. And the people that are trying to play all this, fancy schmancy type of football are going to struggle. And so, I don't know. Maybe there's some credence in the whole idea. If you've got the ball, you've got the other team working more than you do, which is fair. And Burnley do have a lot of possession. So maybe that's the thinking behind it. But
they can't finish the dinner. You can have the ball for 90% of the game if you want, but if you're not going to score anything, what's the point? You're just tiring yourself out too.
Yeah, they're starving. So I think you will beat them, and I actually believe you'll play a weakened squad in this game. So I don't think you'll absolutely hammer them, but it could be like what was it? Your Arsenal Sheffield United. It could be a 5-0 like that, even with a slightly weakened team. To be honest, I think it could go that way, but I don't think I'm going to be that bold on this one. I'm going to call it 3-0 as well. I'm gonna join you on that prediction. I think you're probably right. I mean, that's a lot of wins for us, mate. I hope these all come true because we need them.
Who would have thought it? Two biased fans think that the team's going to win.
We're going to win. Yeah, exactly. Everyone else is we're going to win. But no, anyway, jokes aside, we're going to wrap up the pod here. Thanks a lot for coming on, Jonts. I know you're feeling under the weather, so big up your MVP for this week's pod for pulling yourself out of bed and jumping on the pod. Again, want to shout out Frank Sue Foundation for inviting us to the Stoke Frank Sue commemoration over the weekend. Those guys are doing a really, really good job. So make sure you guys go and check out their social channels, go to their website, donate if you can. They're a really good cause, and Alan Now's a top guy as well. So try and support him if you can. But yeah, big up, Jonts. Thanks for joining, and thanks for tuning in this week's episode.
Thank you, everybody. Big shout out to Frank Sue, but the opposite of a shout out to the PGMOL.
Yeah, take that, you bastards. See you guys later.
Cheers.